Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 16th year of Changi, the 10th month, and the 6th day by the heavenly calendar. Tim Mills is sitting in for the second king of Chenugu, Hyungji-moon, and I am on my own today. So I am reading and also broadcasting. So things may be a little bit, but please forgive. And because our tech team has a different commitment that supersedes the King's Report, and I understand that. So let's first take a stroll around the kingdom and see what's going on right now at the Chongpyeong, Tennessee already. Come on, Tim, focus. Okay. Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 53 degrees and cloudy this morning. And there's going to be periods of rain, some heavy today, and a thunderstorm, and high of 62. Tonight, occasional rain and a drizzle, low of 54. So I'm wondering a little bit what's going to happen on Thanksgiving Day at the Thanksgiving Day event here. And I see it's actually pretty good. It's going to be cool, high of 47, and chance of rain is only 5%, clear and cold. And so probably people will want to bring sweaters, maybe some. I'm going to wear my long underwear. I almost never wear long underwear. I was trained that way in Japan. But yes, I guess, even in Japan, I think people in their 70s wear the long underwear. All right. In, let's see, father's hometown of Cheongju, Pyongan, North Pyongan province. It is currently 30 degrees and clear. Pyongan province, of course, of Korea. 30 degrees and clear, and tonight getting down to 25 degrees. Tomorrow, periods of clouds and sunshine, high of 43. And at the Cheongguk Palace in uh, northeast Pennsylvania, 29 degrees and cloudy right now. Getting up to 49 today, cloudy, a shower in spots this morning, followed by periods of rain this afternoon. And tonight, getting down to 47, so very little change in temperature, I guess, between today and tonight. Periods of rain this evening, otherwise low clouds. And then at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 54 and partly cloudy. Dense fog will burn off this morning, mostly sunny, high of 72. Wow, nice. Tonight, partly cloudy, breezy, late, low of 45. And then at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, 46 and mostly cloudy, getting down to 36 tonight. Tomorrow, hazy sun, high of 58. At the Gunma Palaces in Japan, clear and 46. 40 degrees for a low tonight. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, high of 62. And in Guangzhou, Guangdong province, clear and 70 degrees right now. Clear through the night, 57 degrees for a low and high of 77 tomorrow with hazy sun. Okay. And now let's go to Father's Word, see what he is giving us here. And okay. I'm in the chapters. What is this? I gotta put some light on this. I can't read it. 18, chapter 18. Okay. Someone's trying to reach me. Let's see what's going on here. Who is trying to reach me? Hold on just a second. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Chapter 18, which is on humility and self denial. And Father's words here. Okay, let's go to this here, speaking May 11th, 1969. So my father says, of course, this is, following on a much longer speech here. Father says, okay, so then why then is it that Buddhism and Catholicism um, emphasize celibacy? Can we say that this is completely that celibacy is the basis for human happiness? No. But no religion on earth has indicated what the basis for human happiness is. And no religion, and also no religion has any plans based on or that is centers on the family. That is because that family never appeared. But because we know that at some point that family will appear, they knew that at some point such a family would appear, and that is why they have emphasized celibacy until now, because that was important for humanity to maintain purity and to be ready to build a correct family. May 11th, 1969, to build a right or correct family. Praise God for the word that He has given us. Thank you. All right. Hold on a second, let me put up my mic. Okay. All right, so today let's see what is going on, and I'm going to try and not, move around the screen too much. I hope. Let's see. So anyway, I want to begin with these sort of series of phone calls that happened yesterday. First of all, Xi Jinping called Donald Trump, and apparently Xi Jinping likes to boast that he doesn't call world leaders; world leaders call him. But he made an exception in this case, apparently, because he called Donald Trump. So, what was so important to him that he wanted to speak with Trump all of a sudden? Well, of course, Taiwan and other issues. I suspect, they don't say Venezuela, but I wonder if Venezuela might have also been on Xi Jinping's mind because Taiwan is a running thing that's been going on for a long, long time. Venezuela is sort of developing right now. And why should Xi Jinping be interested in Venezuela? Well, because it looks increasingly likely that President Trump is going to order covert operations within Venezuela to start with, and perhaps more overt operations later on. And China has a great deal of interest in Venezuela's oil. Venezuela has more oil in the ground, all right, oil in the ground, confirmed in the ground, than any other country in the world, including Saudi Arabia. So why isn't Venezuela rich like Saudi Arabia? Well, uh, socialism. Saudi Arabia, I think, has uh, some pretty smart people governing their revenue. And so I think that's one important reason, but also because the oil, yes, Venezuela has lots of oil in the ground, but it's more expensive to get out of the ground than oil in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, that's another reason why Venezuela doesn't do as well as Saudi Arabia. But anyway, China has lent a lot of money to Venezuela. I don't know how much right now. I don't have the figures right now. And in return for the money, in return for the loans, they've told Venezuela, hey, no, don't send us your worthless currency in repayment of those loans. We want our repayments to be in oil. So send us your oil. That's what we want. We're not interested in your paper, whatever it is, bolivars, right? So I just wondered if, even though neither side has mentioned it, I just wonder whether this might have been one of the important issues that they discussed yesterday, even though they might, sort of be keeping it under wraps. President Donald Trump has said he agreed to visit Beijing in April and invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to a state visit later next year, following a phone call between the two leaders. Well, I think this was already discussed in their meeting. What is it? A few weeks ago, that Trump would go to Beijing next year and Xi Jinping would come to the U.S. So this headline is, I think, misleading, or shall we say, it's covering the real news. It's covering up the real news. I think uh, U.S. and China apparently agreed to put this out as a way of sort of camouflaging the actual important information. Trump and Xi, who met nearly a month ago in South Korea, discussed a range of issues, including trade, Russian revolution of Ukraine, I'm sorry, Russian invasion of Ukraine, fentanyl, and Taiwan, according to the president and China's foreign ministry. I suspect that that's not all. I suspect that Venezuela also came up, but I think they've agreed not to mention that publicly. That's my theory. Our relationship with China is extremely strong, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. China's state news agency released a statement that said both countries should keep up the momentum, keep moving forward in the right direction on the basis of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. Right? China wants to be equal to the United States. For starters, then they will want to be better than, or they want to surpass the United States. The leaders met in Busan, South Korea in October, after which they agreed to a truce on tariffs. The U.S. decided to cut a 20% tariff in half, aimed at decreasing the flow of fentanyl. Tariffs remain on Chinese goods, an average just below 50%. Since then, the U.S. China-U.S. relationship has generally maintained a steady and positive trajectory, and this is welcomed by the two countries and the broader international community, the Chinese statement said. The U.S. then pulled back a threat of 100% additional tariffs on Chinese goods. Well, China, okay, okay. Well, this is all old news, all old news. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said on Monday, the Monday call with Xi, which lasted about an hour, was focused on trade. Yeah, I don't believe that. I'm sure trade was mentioned, but they're trying to pretend that this was focused. Why would Xi Jinping call Donald Trump? What was so urgent that he would make an exception when he likes to say that world leaders call me, I don't call them, and then he calls Donald Trump. So basically, putting himself in the object partner position to Donald Trump's subject partner position. And Xi Jinping doesn't like to do that. He likes to think that he is, sort of the emperor of the world. And the emperor doesn't call anybody, no, unless he's going to give orders, and that doesn't seem to be the case here. Even if he's going to give orders, he would have someone else do it. He would not call directly. That's sort of the way that things happen. So the call focused on trade. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We are pleased with what we've seen from the Chinese, and they feel the same way, she said. So, in addition to trade, broached the topics of Russian invasion of Ukraine and Taiwan, and uh, and she said that Taiwan's return to China is essential for China's vision for the post-war international order. And at this point, that so whatever issue it was that caused Xi to call Trump, they discussed that. But in order to camouflage that, they discussed a whole bunch of other stuff. Taiwan, of course, and then they're just reading from a script. And of course, there's no change in either side's position, and they're not trying to convince the other side. So this is just a window dressing, shall we say, or camouflage. Um, and also, China's been marred in a diplomatic battle with Japan, a U.S. ally, over the long-standing strategic ambiguity on the sovereignty of self-governed Taiwan. Okay, now this might be, if it's not Venezuela, then it might be Japan. Maybe Xi Jinping called Trump to say, "Hey, you know what? We're having some problem with your guy, Japan, with your woman, Japan, Takaichi." Remember that photo I showed you yesterday, where Xi Jinping is he's a little bit taller than her, so he's looking down on Takaichi and saying to himself, "Well, what am I going to do with this woman? She's going to be trouble." So maybe, all right, if it's not Venezuela, okay, that could be something that would have prompted this call. Uh, that Xi Jinping says to Trump, "Listen, you got this lady in Japan in Tokyo, and she is giving me real headache." And we'll go in there in a minute. We'll talk a little about that in a minute. That could be the reason. That could be the reason that this call occurred. Yeah. Um, Earlier this month, Takaichi said any Chinese attack on Taiwan could force a Japanese military response. Um, and not only that, but we'll see a little bit later that Takaichi now is going to be deploying missiles to Yonaguni Island, which is about 70 miles or so off the coast of Taiwan. This is the one that I told you about where I stood on a, actually, I was standing on a platform on Taiwan's Pacific coast, and there was a little signboard there that said that, okay, on a clear day, you can see Yonaguni Island. Uh, it was hazy when I was there. The sky was clear, but it was hazy, so I could not see it. But I'm told that, or at least that signboard said that you can see it. So anyway, Yonaguni Island is the southernmost island in the Japanese chain. We'll get there in just a minute here. Trump, however, did not mention Taiwan in his Truth social post about the call. And that's interesting. And we will see in a minute that Taiwan was actually pleased that Trump did not mention Taiwan. But anyway, well, let's go here. U.S. Ambassador to Japan, George Glass, previously said the U.S. backs Tokyo in the wake of China's coercion. Okay, all right. So maybe this was the reason. Maybe okay. Maybe if not Venezuela, perhaps this one. Okay, but I think for some reason they're not mentioning Venezuela. Um, but I think that was also on the call. So anyway, we'll see what that is about. Okay, so and then afterwards, well, wait, well, let's go to this one first. Okay, let's go to this one first. Okay, so this is the Taiwan's reaction to that call between Xi Jinping and Trump. And Taiwan welcomed President Donald Trump's decision not to publicly reference the island after his call with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, describing it as the best result for Taipei. Deputy Foreign Minister Francois, okay, uh, Koreans and not Japanese so much, but Koreans and Chinese like to adopt Western names, and apparently this guy has adopted a French, which I've never seen before. Francois. I've never met an Asian named Francois. Anyway, all right, okay, okay. Francois Chi Chung Wu said Trump's silence signaled that Taiwan wasn't being treated as a bargaining chip in broader U.S. China talks. And this has been a concern of Taiwan that in the course of making a deal with China, President Trump may uh, do something that damages Taiwan's sovereignty or their national interests. Yes, national interests. They are a nation. And so I guess every time Xi Jinping and Trump get together, Taiwan becomes concerned. And so now they're breathing a sigh of relief that it looks like they survived this conversation as well. It's the best result that we are not mentioned, meaning we are not part of the deal, he said by phone. Okay, yeah. Trump and Xi spoke Monday. Okay, we know that. Uh, we understand that Taiwan is China's core interest, but it is also a core interest for Japan, the U.S., and Europe, who said, this is the Taiwanese deputy foreign minister, adding that Taipei maintains frequent and intensive communication with the U.S. Taiwan has also offered subtle support to Japan during Tokyo's dispute with China. It has calibrated its response to signal solidarity with Japan without provoking Beijing, even as President Lai Ching-te adopts a more assertive posture toward China. And this is the sort of the debate that is always going on within Taiwan. How do we assert our national sovereignty without provoking China, without provoking a military attack from China? And it's a very fine line that they are walking. In recent days, Lai and Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung have posted photos of themselves eating sushi. Okay, I guess that shows support for Japan. Hey, listen, symbolism is extremely important, right? It's yeah. Lin has also encouraged Taiwanese travelers to visit Japan and buy the nation's goods in contrast to the wave of cancellations from China after tensions soared. Other Taiwanese officials, one of the things I noticed in Taiwan, and many people have noticed this, is that uh, there's actually a very close relationship with Japan. It's not at all like Korea. Both were under Japanese rule uh, prior to 1945 or leading up to 1945. But you don't see any of the animosity towards Japan in Taiwan that you often see in Korea. In Korea, it's uh, very evident, and anything can spark it. Right? One wrong move, one wrong word can spark the anti-Japanese feelings among Koreans, but not at all the case in Taiwan. In fact, you go to Taiwan. I went to the train station, Taiwan. It's called the Taiwan Main Station, no, Taipei Main Station. The main train station of Taipei, the capital of Taiwan. And I was there to find a place to eat lunch. And I went to there's I saw that there were a bunch of restaurants on the second floor or the mezzanine level. And so I went up there and almost every restaurant, and it's all restaurants. It must be, perhaps a dozen or more restaurants. And almost all of them are Japanese brands or Japanese style food. I saw one Korean style restaurant and one Chinese style restaurant. Everything else was Japanese. This is the mezzanine level of a Taipei main station. So I went into what I went into a restaurant and I did what was it that I ate there? Anyway, it was good. It was good. Forgotten what it was. I think I had uh, tonkatsu ramen or something like that. I've forgotten now. But anyway, yes. So Japanese brands are very popular in Taiwan, and Taiwanese have a very close relationship, not just a economic relationship, but also even, shall we say, Shimjong relationship, artistic relationship with Japan. Other Taiwanese officials have also spoken out. National Security Council head Joseph Wu accused Beijing of hegemonism that threatens Taiwan, bullies the Philippines, and harasses Japan, according to a post on X. On Monday, Francois Wu told reporters that our relations with Japan remain very strong. Then on Tuesday, Taiwanese Foreign Ministry spokesman Xiao Guangwei said at a briefing that China's repeated authoritarian expansion, as seen in its intimidation and pressure on Taiwan, Japan, and neighboring countries, violates UN principles. Taipei's approach is intended to show support for Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, who drew Beijing's ire by becoming the first sitting Japanese leader in decades to publicly link a Taiwan Strait crisis to a potential deployment of Japanese troops. Japan is a key U.S. ally in Asia. There she is. She's answering questions there in the Japanese Diet or Parliament. The status quo of Japan contributing to deterring China from using force is in Taipei's favor, Drew Thompson, a senior fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore, said Monday. It's not good if Japan caves to Beijing's pressure, but there is no indication that this is happening. Right. And I don't think she's going to cave. She's not the caving type. China has hit back at Takaichi's comments by suspending imports of Japanese seafood, warning against travel to Japan, and freezing approvals for new films. It has also threatened further measures if Takaichi doesn't retract her remarks. Her refusal so far raises the risk that the diplomatic spat could spiral into a costly economic standoff. So maybe when Xi Jinping spoke with Trump, maybe he was saying, okay, listen, this is what's going to happen if Takaichi doesn't back down. Perhaps that was the purpose of the call. Could be one purpose of the call. For Taipei, the stakes are high. Cultivating close ties with Japan is nearly as important as maintaining its security relationship with the U.S., Taiwan's main military backer. Japan's geography, situated just north of Taiwan, means it could play a major role in any potential conflict. Beijing views Taiwan, as Tokyo becomes more vocal about the dangers of Chinese coercion, that stance has offered Taiwan valuable clarity and support. Still, Taipei is wary of stoking tensions with Beijing. China has a record of responding with economic pressure, such as by restricting trading tourism, and with some of those measures still in place. After previous disputes, Beijing halted imports of Taiwanese pineapples, fish, and other agricultural products and curbed tour groups to the island, hitting Taiwan's farmers and service industries hard. So, this is a common tactic by Beijing. Say, hey, you don't want to do what we tell you to do, then, hey, no tourists for you and no fish from you, no pineapples. We're not going to import your pineapples. Right? So people have to understand this and I think band together when things like this occur. Like Taiwan right now is saying, hey, if China doesn't want to send tourists to Japan, then let's all in Taiwan, let's all go to Japan. Don't go to the Philippines or Thailand or anything like that. Go north to Japan, even though it's going to get cold. Even though it's getting cold there, let's go north to Japan. Beijing has also ramped up military intimidation of Taiwan in recent years, holding several rounds of armed forces maneuvers around the archipelago since Lai took office in May last year. Uh, Taiwan as an archipelago, well, there are several islands associated with Taiwan, that's true. I never really thought of Taiwan, though, as an archipelago. But anyway, okay. That show of force has also unsettled officials in Tokyo during a visit to a military base near Taiwan on Sunday. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi reaffirmed plans to deploy missiles to the island. So this would be Yonaguni Island, and we'll get to that in just a minute, saying the deployment can help lower the chance of an armed attack on our country. Koizumi added that the ministry was still working on the plan and would share details with the local government and people of Yonaguni Island when it is finalized. Taiwan has sought to deter any potential use of force by deepening its ties with democracies around the world. Earlier this month, Xiao Bi-kim became the first Taiwanese vice president since 2002 to visit a European country without formal ties to Taipei, speaking to an alliance of lawmakers in Brussels who advocate a higher line on China. Days later, former President Tsai Ing-wen warned in Berlin of the dangers posed by the authoritarian toolkits of nations, further amplifying Taiwan's message to European audiences. Okay, so the situation with Taiwan and China is very, very sensitive, and one wrong move could bring catastrophic results. And I know some people say, "Hey, no, come on, China's not going to invade Taiwan. They got too much to lose." But hey, listen, remember 2022, we were saying the same thing about Russia, right? Ah, come on, Russia's not going to invade Ukraine. I mean, they've got so much to lose if they do that. They're going to be cut off from the world economy. They'll have all sorts of sanctions, and it's not going to be good for them. And you know what? We were right. It was a bad idea, but they did it anyway. And so you cannot assume that dictators will also take the most logical or the wisest course. Sometimes dictators just like to project power, right? Okay. All right, let's go then to this whole thing with Yonaguni deployment here. This is from the Japan Times. Japan Times is I guess, it's a globalist newspaper for certain. It has close ties to the business community in Japan. Japan on track to deploy missiles to island near Taiwan, Koizumi says, and here he is, speaks to reporters after this is the defense minister of Japan. And there's his name tag. It says Defense Minister Koizumi. After inspecting the ground self-defense force garrison on Yonaguni Island, Okinawa Prefecture, on Sunday. All right. Japan's defense minister visiting a military base close to Taiwan said plans to deploy missiles to the post were on track as tensions smolder between Tokyo and Beijing over the East Asian island. Remember, we talked about Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, right? No military, and yet here he is visiting a military base. So that's the world we live in. Okay. The, and I'm sure the people who wrote that Constitution, it was written by Americans, after World War II, and sort of, and the Japanese were compelled to pass it. And even though the occupation ended in 1952, uh, the conservatives cannot get together enough votes in the Diet or Parliament to actually amend the Constitution. They would love to, and if the Japanese electorate gives them the supermajority that they need, then I'm sure they will amend the Constitution. But they haven't been able to do that, and so what is it now? 80, almost 80 years later, close to 80 years now, they still have the same Constitution, but they interpret it differently. Okay, so like abortion in the U.S. 1973 legal, 2023 not legal. The Constitution of any country, actually, when you get down to it, says whatever the Supreme Court says it says. Okay, so that's how it is in the real world. Okay, let's get rid of that. The deployment can help lower the chance of an armed attack on our country. In other words, on Japan. Shinjiro Koizumi told reporters on Sunday as he wrapped up his first trip to the base on the southern Japanese island of Yonaguni. The view that it will heighten regional tensions is not accurate. So he's arguing against China's position. Japan is planning to station medium-range surface-to-air missiles, medium range, right? Medium-range surface-to-air missiles on Yonaguni. In other words, they can reach probably anywhere in China, about 110 kilometers east of Taiwan, and that's about 70 kilometers roughly, as part of a as part of a broader military buildup on its southern island chain. The moves reflect Tokyo's concerns about China's growing military power and the potential for a clash over Taiwan. Those fears have been amplified by a dispute over recent comments by Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi related to the self-ruling territory, which Beijing Takaichi on November 7th raised the theoretical possibility that Japan could deploy its military with other nations if China attacked Taiwan, drawing an angry response and economic retaliation from Beijing. And this also, on the part of Takaichi, is a pretty big step forward, actually, because Japan has maintained that its constitution forbids it. I have to laugh because I mean, how can they've changed the effectively changed the Constitution so much that it's really laughable that they would use the Constitution as an excuse for anything. But anyway, their position right now is that the Constitution forbids them from joining any kind of a collective security arrangement. In other words, if there were an Asian NATO, Japan would say that, hey, our Constitution will not allow us to join your Asian NATO because we are not allowed to be a part of any kind of a collective security arrangement. Um, Now, even during the Korean War, of course, Japan officially was not one of the 16 countries that lent troops to Korea. And in fact, at one point, General MacArthur raised the possibility of bringing in Japanese troops to support South Korea in the Korean War. And the response from Syngman Rhee, President Syngman Rhee at the time, was that, according to what we've been told, that if Japanese soldiers set one foot on Korean soil, we will unite with North Korea to fight them off. That's what we're told Syngman Rhee said to MacArthur about that idea. But the Japanese naval, or I think maritime self-defense forces, as the official name, got to keep the official name, right? Maritime self-defense forces did do some anti-mining operations, clearing mines and so forth from harbors and keeping harbors, making sure that harbors were open, and perhaps laying mines as well. I'm not sure, but at least certainly the making sure that mines were not placed in South Korean harbors. They did that. So Takaichi now saying uh, that Japan's military could become involved if with other nations if China were to attack Taiwan. That is a pretty big step actually. And so I think China is aware of this, and so they're trying to make Takaichi back down from that statement. Because if that statement stands, then that becomes policy for Japan, and that would be very well inconvenient for China, to say the least. That would be a major sort of a kink in their calculation on the invasion of Taiwan. She has reverted to the government's longstanding policy of not discussing particular scenarios that might invoke Tokyo's military, but Beijing continues to demand a retraction. On Saturday, a Japanese official rejected China's claims that Takaichi has altered Japan's position on the Taiwan crisis as entirely baseless. And you see, so exactly. And China is actually correct on this. But of course, Japan is saying, no, man, no, nothing changed, nothing changed. But yeah, China is correct that Japan has changed. And from God's point of view, it's a good change. When asked about the potential impact on Yonaguni of a Taiwan crisis, Koizumi said he wouldn't comment on hypothetical scenarios. So, so they're not going any further, but they're also not backing down. Before arriving in Yonaguni, Koizumi visited bases on the islands of Ishigaki and Miyako. And those are the next islands over. Ishigaki is east of Yonaguni, east and a little bit north, and then Miyako is also down there. The Ishigaki base is equipped with anti-ship missiles, while Miyako is a hub for air surveillance and other military facilities, including ammunition storage. Japan and the U.S. also have major bases on the larger island of Okinawa, further to the east. Well, not to the east, it's northeast, more north actually than east. And it's actually a few hundred miles, I think, from Okinawa Island down to all the way to Yonaguni. A popular tourist retreat, including for scuba divers, Yonaguni is also home to a surveillance radar facility that scans nearby seas and airspace, as well as an electronic warfare unit introduced in 2024 that could be used to jam enemy communications and guidance systems. In recent weeks, the U.S. military held a training exercise to bring supplies from Okinawa to Yonaguni to simulate the creation of a forward operating base that might be needed in any regional crisis. When China responded to a visit to Taiwan by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in 2022 by launching major military drills around the island, ballistic missiles landed just south of Yonaguni, providing a stark illustration of the proximity of the island to any conflict for control of Taiwan. In a meeting with the mayor of Yonaguni, Koizumi said Japan has to build up its deterrence by increasing its own capabilities and deepening ties with the U.S. military. Today, Japan faces the most severe and complex security environment since the end of World War II, Koizumi said. To protect the peaceful livelihoods of the Japanese people, including everyone here on Yonaguni, we must strengthen the self-defense forces' capabilities. Now, I don't know the political situation in Yonaguni. It's a very small community there. But the situation in Okinawa is that the communists have virtually taken over the island, pretty much. You know, the politicians on the sort of the governing politicians, shall we say, on Okinawa Island are all communist, very close to China. And China has been making a very concerted effort to bring Okinawa, the main island of Okinawa, and then by implication all the other tiny islands that are part of the chain, into China's fold. And they've been pretty successful in doing that. And so, yes, Japan definitely has in mind that, for example, if the U.S. forces were not stationed on Okinawa, there would be a real danger that Okinawa will be the next Taiwan. So China takes Taiwan, and then it takes Okinawa, and then it would have free passage into the Pacific Ocean, and nothing would be able to stop it from taking its naval assets into the Pacific Ocean. And historically, of course, Okinawa has gone sort of back and forth, back and forth. They were an independent kingdom. Well, independent is not the word, but a sovereign kingdom to some extent. And sometimes they were under the Chinese emperor. Sometimes they were under Japan, especially the Kagoshima or Satsuma fiefdom, and they suffered actually in both cases. Their women were taken and they were used as slaves, and so Okinawa has really been uh, has a very tragic history in its position of going back and forth between Japan and China. Yonaguni is at the endpoint of the Ryukyu Island chain that stretches several hundred miles from the Japanese mainland. As tensions with China intensified in recent days, Chinese state controlled media have published articles questioning Japan's sovereignty over the islands. See there? Yeah. They want Okinawa. And highlighting how the Ryukyu kingdom was independent from Japan several hundred years ago. And they were. Well, they had their own king. And his own palace there in Shuri was the name of the location where the palace was. And you still have the remains of that palace today. Um, and it was a you talk. I lived in Okinawa for 1 year, and my family was there. My parents were there for 3 years. And I lived there as a teenager for 1 year, and so I had a chance to talk with Okinawan people about their history. And World War II, for example, they were used as human shields, and it was a terrible situation. Few residents of the Ryukyu Islands, also known as Okinawa Prefecture, seek independence, but they're wary of being embroiled in a regional conflict if military facilities on the islands are targeted. But China, though, is working patiently to foment that sort of sense of independence among Okinawan people. I think maybe native Okinawans might feel that way, but so many Japanese now have moved down there. It has sort of become the substitute for Guam and Hawaii for Japanese. Japanese used to like to go to Guam and Hawaii, but now, why go to a foreign country when you can stay within Japan? So they go to Okinawa, and uh, there are a lot of beaches there and stuff like that. All right, so situation there. So Xi Jinping called President Trump, and that has led to all sorts of stuff. Okay. Alrighty then. Um, let's see. Oh yes, I want to go to this one. Trump canceling. What was it? Okay, we'll do that later. Oh yeah. Okay, let's do this one. Okay. Yeah, let's do this one. Hold on a second. You'll see it in a minute. I want to. Okay. Arrange things here. Okay. Oops. No, that's not right. Okay. Good. Make sure I don't uh, click the wrong thing here. As if when I'm doing both at once, I sometimes do that. How come I'm not sharing? Okay. I guess I am sharing, right? Am I sharing? I guess I am, all right. Yes. Okay, I am sharing. All right. All right. I'm sorry about this black thing, but I need it so that I know when I'm sharing and when I'm not. Okay. So, opinion by David Marcus. Only you can stop the foreign info operations Elon Musk just exposed. So let's take a look at this. Right. In 2019, I was sitting in a classroom at the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, with a bunch of guys about to get their full birds and a few invited civilians. The instructor asked, "What is our greatest national security threat?" It wasn't terrorism, it wasn't nukes, it was cyber attacks. This week, Elon Musk's social media platform X showed just how insidious foreign cyber attacks can be, as he made it possible for users to view the country of origin of any account. And almost immediately, some of the most corrosive users purporting to be Americans turned out not to be. One fake account called itself Ultra MAGA Us Trump US 2028 with American flags in the name and claimed to be based in Washington, D.C., but is actually listed as being based in Africa. Another, now deleted, was Trump is my president, listed in Macedonia. A very patriotic account named at American had a profile picture with a bald eagle over the American flag, but it is, as it turns out, based in South Asia. We've known since the aftermath of the 2016 election that malign foreign governments have used fake social media accounts to sow discord. In one example from the Mueller report, a fake Russian account organized an actual physical political rally in America. As I wrote about in this column back in June, the MAGA movement, and we'll get to that June column in a minute, the MAGA movement in particular has been targeted recently by foreign influence seeking to break it apart. Fake foreign accounts can not only create the appearance of great influence through clicks and likes, they can also fund malicious users through monetization. The bad news is that our nation is particularly vulnerable to informational attacks precisely because we are a free society. We are dominant militarily, economically, and diplomatically, but our Achilles heel is information, the free exchange of which we value more than safety. For example, in no universe would China allow the United States to feed its kids an endless doom loop of propaganda as it does to our kids with TikTok. And even if it were banned, as Congress tried to do, another would simply take its place. The First Amendment ties our hands. This is why, and I hate to throw something on top of everyone's busy day, but this is why the only thing that can mitigate these foreign information attacks is a well informed citizenry. There really are very few other meaningful solutions. Because we are a free society, the government cannot truly protect you from bad foreign actors pretending to be a Denver housewife, which is why Musk's decision to add country of origin to accounts is such an important game changer. But using that important tool is not enough. We must remain diligent and always remembering in every online moment that what we are interacting with may not be real, and we may be trying to do us and may be trying to do us and our nation harm. It is a daunting responsibility, no doubt, to constantly question what we see online, but only because freedom itself is daunting and there are some giveaways and tells to look for. When you are told that such and such an influencer has an incredible sway over their online audience, ask yourself if you have ever seen an example of it offline, I'm sorry, an example of it offline. Do they hold physical events? Have you ever heard anyone talk about them in real life? Then ask yourself who might benefit from the discord and doubt these influences plant in our society, the distrustfulness of each other, even the dehumanization of each other. The obvious answers are Russia, China, and Iran. I feel fairly certain that my instructor at the Army War College 10 or all those years ago, I guess this should be all those years ago, would applaud Elon Musk for adding a country of origin label. Maybe it is, it is a tremendous blow against foreign information operations, but he'd also point the finger at us and tell us to be diligent. In the end, it is important to remember that most of our neighbors, our fellow Americans, are good and decent, and that when our offline screens, when our, got to keep my on and off straight here, when our online screens purport to show us otherwise, we should always be skeptical because our enemies are not going to stop pressing this advantage. All right. So let's go to that June uh, June article. Okay, this is it here. David Marcus, your social media feed is being hijacked to divide MAGA supporters. Foreign enemies pay off content creators through manipulated engagement metrics rather than direct payments. So, yeah, you can pay someone not by sending them money, but by sending them clicks or by sending them subscribers, and they get paid that way by X or by YouTube or by by Facebook, I suppose. And here he's pointing out that uh, here that Russia and Iran have been employing tens of thousands of bots to inject extreme rhetoric into American social media discourse, and perhaps more importantly, to artificially inflate the influence of content creators who push radical and divisive agendas. If you talk to Republicans right now, more than 80% of them support the war against Iran. But if you go to Twitter, you get the sense that there is a civil war raging. Right? So that's obviously shows that Iran has infiltrated Twitter. This manipulation of social media by our enemies is far more insidious than most Americans realize. So let's walk through how this kind of information operation, the technical name for propaganda, works. Imagine, for example, that there was an obscure comedian or Instagram model who began to just ask questions about why Jews run everything or why black people commit crimes. Even better, they might post about how they aren't allowed to ask these very questions and insinuate that neither are you. At this point, according to the report, Russian and Iranian bot armies will begin to follow these radical accounts, massively pumping up their numbers. It will like and share the most divisive content and work behind the scenes to make this person famous. Our platforms, so that's what I need to do. No. On platforms that monetize interaction, this can mean very large payouts for creators as spy bots mindlessly watch their videos over and over. And the beauty of it is that the content creator never even has to know they are getting paid off. Mhm. When we talk about influencers being bought and paid for by foreign foes, it may not mean a duffel bag full of cash in a bus station locker. Simply by using thousands of bots to juice the numbers, the social media companies themselves facilitate the payouts. Perhaps the most obvious way we can see this malign foreign influence online is in the incredible amount of casual racism and anti Semitism supposedly being posted by Americans that we see on X. These hate posts range from straight up Nazi apologism to memes about fatherless black homes or weird eugenics IQ graphs. And if their prevalence in the algorithm accurately reflects the level of racism in America, then this is a deeply racist country. Only it isn't, because X does not accurately reflect our society. Instead, countries that despise America are infusing hate into the platform and propping up the handful of real people willing to push racism and division. What the Russian and Iranian bot farms hope we will believe is that America is full of secret racists who will only say their true beliefs through their anonymous personas, but this is absurd. China knows IRL, that kind of racism is buried in our past. The question becomes, what can we do to fight back against the massive information operation aimed at our minds? Liberals have long taken the exact wrong approach, which is to try to protect the end user from malicious content. This always adds up to censorship, one way or the other. The better approach, at least as far as the government is concerned, is to target the bot farms in countries that back them. This can be done through cyber attacks, sanctions, any number of measures. There's also a role for the social media industry to play here. We are hearing growing calls for X to use a flag to identify the country of origin of its accounts. This would immediately help users see through the foreign operations. The silver lining in all of this, as the report shows, is that making the leap from influence on a social media screen to influence in the real world is not as easy as we might have once imagined. These foreign-backed influencers have few outlets they can go to off of social media. Sure, Piers Morgan may put on anyone with $250,000 followers, or I'm sorry, 250,000 followers, no matter how awful they are, but mainstream America isn't seeing it. Okay, so anyway, so on and so forth. So I checked my X account to see where it says I'm based, and it says I'm based in Korea, which is true. I am, for the most part, based in Korea. But but I'm not a malign foreign influencer, am I? I mean, I'm an American who is based in Korea. So that's the downside of this thing. That now I'm being labeled as a foreign account, potentially trying to undermine America. Let me show you. Maybe I can show you here where that appears. It's in my profile, and where was it now? Let's see here. Wait, okay. So I'll go to my profile, okay, and then it says I joined December 2022. All right. And then I click on that because there's an arrow next to that. There's a uh, greater than symbol next to that. So if I click on that, then it says, okay, date joined December 22, account based in Korea. verified since March 2025. One username changed last on December 2022, which, so in other words, I haven't changed my name. Connected via uh, United States Android app. So anyway, it says account based in. But next to that, there's a little information, circle with an I in it, and it says here the country or origin that an account is based can be impacted by recent travel or temporary relocation. This data may not be accurate and can change periodically. Go to settings to report a problem. Okay. So if I go to settings, you can choose to show region or country on your account information. And you get to choose between region and continent or country. All right. And if I want to report a problem, what happens? Um, hmm, okay. So I can report an issue, and there are two issues that I can report. My country or region is wrong, or my account was incorrectly identified as using a VPN or proxy. So anyway, that's what X is doing now, which I think is probably a good idea. A little bit, I wish I could be also identified as a U.S. citizen, but I guess there's really no reason, no way that they can do that. So anyway, I'm just identified as an account based in Korea. Okay. So yeah, so now if I were to go, let's see, this is interesting. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. Hold on with me. Yeah, let's see here. Let's go down a rabbit hole here. Following. Okay. Let's look at some of the people who are following me to see who they actually are. How do I get that? Where can I get a list of followers? Here we go. Maybe this is it. Yeah, okay, followers. All right. Let's choose. Let's see here. Let's choose the one at the top here. Hulda Herald. Hulda Herald. Let's see where this person is based. Joined July 2025. So very recent. And this person is based in Hong Kong. Okay. And let's look at the profile photograph. All right. It's a photograph of an Asian woman, sort of this side just her head from here up. But who knows who that actually is? Just one more. Diana. Okay, Diana, a good Western name. Let's see where she's based. Joined September 2025. Okay. And also based in Hong Kong. Ah, so it looks like I'm popular in Hong Kong. Is that good or bad? Burrow. Okay. Also based in Hong Kong. Hey, I'm popular in Hong Kong. All right. So, yes, this is interesting. And those are probably bots, I suspect. But anyway, hey, praise God. Praise God. I love bots. I love bots. I'll take them. Okay. All right. Okay. I was going to do a thing today on the GDP report. It was supposed to come out at the end of October, and it didn't, of course, because of the government shutdown. And now we don't know when they're going to publish uh, the most recent GDP calculations. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with that. Okay. All righty then. Let's see here. All right. Okay. All right. And I have to go. So God bless Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.